Now, we're going to start with approval of the minutes that Cindy has sent to everybody for January 16th, 17th, 18th, 22nd, and February 7th. And so hopefully everybody had a chance to review that. She sent it to you last week. And I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Representative Carpenter, seconded by Representative Sutton. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All against say no. Motion passes and the minutes are accepted. Okay, committee, next up, we're going to have final action on HB 2570. That's the unemployment bill that we've been working on for about 4 weeks now, or since we've gotten here, really. I think we're at a point that we will be able to hear any changes that need to happen on the bill and pass it out favorably by the end of this. So, get a brief update on what the bill does. Just kind of a quick overview. I think we've heard it many times, and I think everybody in the committee understands pretty fully what the bill does. But just touch the high points, if you would, Charles.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. The provisions, there are a number of provisions in 2570 from HB 2401 from last year. The definition, it defines benefit year and temporary employment. Electronic report filing is required for employers with 25 or more employees. There's discretion provided to the Temporary Employment Security Review Board in appointment terms, delays new account formation after certain business acquisitions. There's a new UI system. It must allow employers to report claimant compliance with work search requirements or with the My Reemployment Plan, and also requires notice of compliance reporting options to employers after the new UI system is implemented. It confirms the Legislative Coordinating Council's authority to extend new system implementation deadlines and clarifies the procedure. Some additional provisions: abolishes the Employment Security Interest Assessment Fund. The bill extends the Unemployment Compensation Modernization Improvement Council sunset date to the end of December 2026. It creates new statutory definitions, including for statewide average annual wage and statewide average weekly wage. It defines and also provides for some extensions to temporary unemployment. It changes the trust fund control tables and the employer contribution rate tables. And I think Mr. Hayes presented some extensive testimony on what those changes are about. Taxable wage base is changed. The My Reemployment Plan and the new temporary unemployment definition and extension language is aligned, so that's cleaned up. The Department of Labor is required to publish general effective tax rates and contribution rate tables annually. The voluntary contributions deadline for businesses is extended from 30 days after the rate notice to 90 days. There are employer charge notices. The issuance is changed from annually to quarterly. And there was a restriction on charging employers if charges are less than $100. That was removed. The UI weekly benefits are to be stopped if there are any federal UI weekly supplemental payments to a claimant greater than the state benefits. Employment Security Board of Review candidate qualifications are added. And there are additional annual data reporting requirements for the Department of Labor. And then, as the committee will recall, we passed an amendment to the bill. Do you want me to quick go through that, or maybe everybody's familiar with that?
You can go ahead. I think everybody's pretty familiar with the amendment. Anybody have any questions on the bill as it sits today? Seeing none. Okay, thank you, sir. All right, on the bill 2570, we'll open discussion here, and for discussion and changes, I do have two amendments the first one is a technical amendment for a change. So Charles, if you'd hand that up. This one. So basically in the underlying bill on page 60, line 34, we've extinguished the liabilities of the Employment Security Interest Assessment Fund, and we transferred any additional liability future, which we're not expecting any at all, but we transferred it to the Employment Security Trust Fund, which we cannot do. Our trust fund it's a federally protected. We can't take anything out of it or assign any liabilities to it. So we're striking Employment Security Trust Fund and replacing that with State General Fund, so that if there's ever any liabilities, it would come from the State General Fund and not from the trust fund, because they can't. Charles, you have anything to add to that? No. Okay. So any questions on that change? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to accept the amendment. Anybody want to second that? Representative Bourgeon, thank you very much. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say no. Motion passes. Okay, the second amendment, you all have a copy of it. We gave you a copy of it last week or a week and a half ago when we reviewed the bill and made one change. At that point, I had told you we were only going to make the one change that day, and so I'd let you have the other amendment in advance to review it. And that's an amendment to add bus drivers to unemployment liability. We've been working with the bus drivers for several years on this, and their representatives, also the bus companies. And as I looked into, did some research, the trust fund for all the bus drivers, their accounts are all positive by a long ways. So they do have money in their funds that are positive. And the way we have structured this new unemployment plan, when you go negative, you're going to pay for it. And there's all kinds of triggers in this bill that allow an employer to manage their losses. And one of them is the work share program that you can participate in if you are a positive rated employer. And what this amendment does is allow the bus drivers to participate in that program. And so as long as the companies remain positive, they can participate in the work share program. And another part of this bill, if the company goes into the negative, they have the right to buy back in to settle their negative to be back to zero, and their rates won't go up. And so if they were to continue to do that, they would be able to continue. If they ever get to zero, they'd continue to participate in that program. And so that's what this amendment does. It adds the bus drivers back in, and it gives everybody what they want for now. And we think we have a good solution for that. Charles, did I leave anything out? No. Okay. Any discussion on that? Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your discussions with the other parties that were already included, was there any opposition to the bus drivers being added back in this manner? Or is there too much of a burden or a probability of weight?
There was a little bit of pushback, yes, at first, just because of the principle of the thing. But the way that we have done it, it protects. The biggest issue was people were concerned it would be a drain on the trust fund for other companies. The way we have it structured, it can't get there. So we've resolved that. Representative Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you educate me on, and I can tell you in my area, the bus drivers are employed by the school district. I'm assuming that's not like that across the state. Could you educate me on that?
It is not. It's not. So schools are normally reimbursing employers, and they pay their claims. We pay their claims for them, and they reimburse us. So they're in a whole different category. These are for the contracted out. Some schools contract out with bus companies.
Okay, thank you for educating me.
All right, seeing no further discussion, I get a second on the amendment. Representative Clayton. Any further discussion? Representative Dodson? No. Okay, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say no. Motion passes. Is there any further, that's all I have. Is there any further discussion or amendments on the bill? Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment regarding the Security Review Board. And so, Charles, if you don't mind passing that out, and with the permission of the chair, I'll explain it and my reasoning behind it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right. So if you all could pull up your testimony from Phil Hayes. Of course, that was from SHRM, Kansas Chamber, and NFIB. If you could find page 7 on that testimony, it should be on the S drive. But at the bottom of page 7, Mr. Hayes cited a letter from the governor. So you'll see both pages at the bottom of it. I know it's kind of small font. I had to copy paste it and put it in Word to blow it up because I can't see anymore. But in any case, that, if you look at that on the second page, lower paragraph, in those bullet points that are cited in Phil's testimony from that letter from the governor, this amendment puts things in line with that testimony. So with that, I'll go ahead and stand for questions, but it's just technical changes that dovetail with that testimony from Kansas SHRM, NFIB, and the chamber.
Representative Bourgeon. Sorry, Charles, was there, you're good? Okay. Representative Bourgeon with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just be interested from the carrier if you have, you mentioned SHRM. Have they reviewed this and are they in support of your amendment?
It would stand to reason that they would be, because it's literally in their testimony, page 7, bottom of the page, a letter that they cited saying that it was a good thing.
Okay, but we haven't talked to them per se.
Charles.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a note of clarification that applies to all these amendments. So the material in green is what the committee adopted in the larger amendment. And so just to clarify, and then what's in red would be, what we're doing with the amendment before you, the current amendment.
Any other questions or discussions? Representative Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would want to go back to some of the discussion that we had before, and I think what some of the concern that came up is that the way this was structured in current language without the amendment is it's really exclusionary and limits the number of people or the type of people that we can have on this board. And I think that we're better served by having a broader base of experience. This still requires a pretty high threshold of experience to get on the board, but at least allow some flexibility to have maybe more than an HR person on this board.
So committee, I believe we were expecting an amendment similar to this, and I have talked to the parties. I can tell you that the change that they made from 10 to 8 and from 7 to 3 was in response to what the Department of Labor testified the previous meeting. And the word "and" was in there for a purpose, not on accident. The current board qualifies for all of this, and there is a waiting list of people that also qualify for all 3 of these things. And the board has never run more smoothly than it is currently, and both sides agree to that. And so I would say this is not a friendly amendment. It needs to be adjusted later. It could be, but they wrote it the way they did for a reason. Any further questions? Representative Penn.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you probably just hit upon it, and I just wanted to ask if you're saying that what we're striking, what was already done was the green, and what we're doing now with this amendment is the red. So if it strikes off the experience, whether it be 8 years or 10 years in developing policy, and whether they have 3 years or 7 years with direct experience and knowledge of employment labor laws, if we take this amendment as it is, then that kind of whittles down what the quality of those individuals will be on the board. Is that a concern? Are these things necessary and proper for those board members to have this experience, to encompass knowledge of policy making before they are, I don't know, within 3 years of having experience being told what to do or executing the processes, but not necessarily developing it? Would this hurt or harm the board? Is my question.
So what's written in green is what we added last time, and that's accepted. What's written in red would be the changes, and it would strike all the things you're saying. And it's my opinion that it would lessen the strength of the board. Charles.
Just clarification, if you look at the 3 in green, it's stricken, and that's new. This amendment would strike that 3, and the strikeout is in green because I guess I should have tried to make it in red. I think I did, but it wouldn't work.
President Wiseman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You had stated that you don't believe that, or you believe that "and" is a necessary component, but as I read through the original language, it appears that "and" might be just superfluous. It starts with "in order of priority shall be," so it lists these 3 different things, allowing you to choose as number 1 is the highest priority, number 2, number 3. So "and" is not necessary even within the language as it's crafted. And then the second part of it is legal education experience. And I can understand this is a well-run board, and anybody with legal education is just going to detract from that. But in this case, I think that it probably might be beneficial to have that in there as well. But that's just me.
It sounds like you'll be supporting the amendment. Any further discussions? Seeing none. Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I will just go ahead and close by stating that this amendment is designed not to weaken the board, but to widen the board.
I'm sorry, so we don't have a second.
We don't?
We need to get a second before that. Representative Probst.
Sorry, I thought that.
That was my bad. They've reminded me 3 times and I didn't come back to it. So
thank you for the second, Mr. Ranking. So just to continue my discussion. So one of the issues that I see here is that it looks like some of these changes to the board are designed to put it only so that a certain type of professional has their eyes on it. I think that we will have a better board if we do, believe it or not, muddle things up a little bit with the opinions of attorneys. A lot of times they are designed and educated to catch mistakes, whereas if we have it heavily based on HR professionals, then they might act in the best interest, not really of what the wider situation should be, but in the best interest of themselves. That is the intent of this amendment. I consider it friendly. I'm a pretty friendly kind of gal, Mr. Chair. So I would urge you all to continue by being friendly and support it. Thank you. I close.
all right, committee, you've heard the amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no.
No.
Motion fails. Any further discussion or amendments? Representative Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a handful of amendments, I believe. Do them one at a time if you want to start. Charles, you want to start with the ghosting? Before I explain that, I want to, I guess, alert the committee's attention to something. And I was going to prepare an amendment for this, and I worked different from the amendments that I'm going to run here, but I at least want to, I guess, make this committee aware. There's a provision that ties the weeks of unemployment that you can get to a statewide unemployment average. And I think in the discussion, I raised a concern that there might be localized emergencies that would require more adaptability. I just want to make the point that I think we're pretty inflexible in some parts of this bill, and that's one of them. And in working with Phil, we couldn't come to language that we both agreed on that would work for the department. But if you may remember, a few years ago, we had to pass special legislation when the Boeing Max had some issues and laid off a bunch of people in the Wichita area. We had to address that. I think we're setting up a situation where we'd have to do that again, where we have to pass individual legislation, and I think that's unfortunate. I think in our desire to clamp down on a lot of things, we sometimes get a little overbearing. But I'll move on with this amendment. Where?
Representative Sutton, you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this amendment is addressing the ghosting provision, and I know that there was a lot of testimony and a lot of feeling that this idea that people who are on unemployment, who are supposed to do job searches, are going and getting interviews set up and then not showing up for the interviews. And I felt after we heard the testimony that one, we don't even have, well, we don't know how big of a problem it is. I don't know that it's quite a profound problem as we seem to think. Another thing is that it is really the sort of thing where we're putting the burden on employers. This only works if employers voluntarily take time out of their busy days with doing extra work with the employees they apparently can't find to get on a website and report potential employees who didn't show up. We don't have their social security numbers. We don't have any real solid identifying information. We don't have their birth date. We don't have their social security number. We have a name and we have an address and we have a phone number. And somehow we're going to give that information to the Department of Labor. And they're supposed to zero in on the exact person that we're talking about and then flag that person to say they didn't show up for a job interview. I want to make when you look at the fiscal note for this entire thing adds, I believe, 18 full-time employees to the Department of Labor and about $3.5 million to implement all the provisions of this. And there's at least one full-time employee that's tied specifically to this provision. And that's at a rough cost of about $100,000 when you count overhead, things like that, for that one employee, plus some programming concerns. So we're in our effort to solve this problem that we don't actually have hard data to show what problem it is. We're going to grow government. We're going to add full-time employees. We're going to add cost of the department's budget. We're going to create another interface with the public. We're going to create another thing for employers to do. We're going to have this employee in place for a long time. We're going to add complications to the coding in the middle of a modernization project. And I don't know that we're actually solving a problem that needs to be solved. So this amendment simply strikes all the language out from the ghosting provision and says, let's just move on with the other efforts that we have. We already have auditing provisions. The department told us how they do have auditing provisions that check for this. I think we have good systems in place and we could do without this provision. And we could save the state a little bit of money and effort going forward.
Oh, seconded by Representative Shu. Any questions for the bringer of the amendment? Representative Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think it's a little unfair to say it's going to be burdensome on the employers. This is completely voluntary if the employers want to do that. And I'd like to say second, I mean, it's hard to understand what the problem is and how deep the problem goes unless you've talked to employers that have experienced this. It's extremely frustrating. And I kind of hate to say it, but in a lot of cases, and I've talked to people, this happens more than it doesn't, if that makes sense to you. I don't support the amendment.
Any questions or further discussions? Representative Clayton.
Procedurally, do we have a second yet?
Representative Shu.
Sorry, thank you for that clarification. I guess I would counter that and say that part of the reason why I support this amendment is that no matter how frustrating it is to deal with ghosting, that a lot of times you cannot legislate behavior. You can't legislate politeness. And the thing is that oftentimes If someone ghosts you, oftentimes that means that you were not meant to be. And so if an employee is flaking out on interviews, they were not going to be a good employee anyway. And sometimes you just let it go and see that as a blessing.
Representative Poskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just say I'm in full support of the amendment. As we talked about during the hearing, since it is optional for employers to participate and it's based on their frustration level, I have grave concerns that the reporting will not be fair and across all members of our community who are ghosting, that there might be reports on certain kinds of folks. And I think as data, we don't want to have that kind of bias in our data. So I stand in support of the amendment. Thank you.
Any further discussions or questions? I would just note that that's what this original bill was about, was ghosting, and then all these other things kind of came. Some of them came from the Department of Labor. Some of them came from further allowing another year to work this bill from last year. And really, all it is checking another box. Employers already have the ability to report someone that doesn't accept a position to the Department of Labor, and they still only have their name and address. They don't, that sometimes they have their social, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have a social on a job application, sometimes they don't. But all it does is kind of enhance the Department of Labor's ability to cross-check someone that says they're looking for a job. And if they get a notification that, yeah, we received a resume, we called them for an interview, they didn't show up, then they can look at that person, see if they're collecting unemployment. And if they are, and they put that company on, then that could trigger an audit. Then they could follow up with the employee to make sure that they are looking for a job. And if they're not, they could help them look for a job. And that's my 2 cents worth. You can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I close, I guess I'd just say we're making a policy that's largely based on anecdotal evidence, or anecdata, I like to call it. And, we don't know that this is, we can anecdotally talk about what a problem this is. I can anecdotally talk about the people I've talked to who apply for jobs and never hear back from employers. So if we're going to start dealing in anecdotes and basing policy on anecdotes and wasting state resources on the people who bend our ears about the issues they're upset about, I'd like to see us be likewise punitive to employers who don't respond when people apply for posted jobs. But we're not doing that. We seem to be oriented in one direction, and that's fine. That's what we do. But this is an unnecessary policy, and we'll vote this, and I can imagine how it will go. But this costs the state taxpayers money, and it will grow government. And if we're all okay with doing that, let's do it. I move my amendment.
So, committee, you've heard the amendment. All in favor say aye. All against say no. No. Motion does not pass. On that previous statement on data and reporting some people and not others, I wasn't going to say anything, but these are people that don't show up for interviews. You don't know what they look like. You don't know what they speak like. You just know they didn't show up for an interview. So the data, I don't know that it could be skewed in any way or racist in any way. They just report someone that sent in a resume and didn't show up. So we'll move on to the next amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You want to go ahead and explain the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment there's a section in the bill that says we will suspend state unemployment benefits if the federal government offers benefits that meet or exceed what's available at the state level. And I guess I'll wait for a second and I can explain.
I'm looking for a second, Representative Shu.
Thank you. So, yeah, basically this, like I said, it strikes that language. Another example of this is going to be a coding issue. We're going in the middle of a modernization project that we have been very strident in pushing for, that we want this to happen. And we are going to complicate this further with a very complex, what seems to me, and I'm not a coder, but I understand logic models at least a little bit. And it feels to me that we're going to now incorporate language that says, if we run through a process where somebody qualifies for unemployment, but if they qualify for unemployment and there's this, this, and this from the federal level, and it equals this or this greater than that, then we come back to the original point and say, then they disqualify for federal or state benefits, which we heard testimony that one of the qualifiers in all of these pandemic era programs that were stood up is that you had to qualify for state benefits in order to qualify for the federal benefits. A couple of things. We have this out for review right now through the Federal Department of Labor. My suspicion is that it will not conform with USDOL and that this part of the law will be invalidated. So we're doing something that's probably just, we're doing it, but it's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna hold up. We can't do it. I mean, you have to qualify for state benefits before you can qualify for federal benefits. We're writing into policy a complaint that existed in this one narrow moment of time that's happened once in our lifetimes. This is a once in a lifetime thing that happened, where we had these additional benefits stood up because of a very rare and extreme condition that happened. And we're writing into policy this kind of forever thing just because we're upset about what happened 4 years ago. And we're holding on to that. And I think it's really complicating things. The other things, I don't know if during that period, whenever we had all the trouble with the unemployment system, and I don't know how many of you actually went and walked through the application process and the processing process with anybody at the Department of Labor. But one of the issues we had in processing claims was the insane amount of lines of code and decision matrices that had to happen to decide whether somebody qualified for unemployment benefits or not. There was over 1,000 different answers that had to be done in this coding. It's very complex. And every time we decide something new, there is a new provision of code that goes into that processing, and it complicates the issue further. And that's what these things do. I know that this is based on some generalized angst about people during the pandemic weren't working because it was too easy to get benefits. I made this point before, and I'll make it again. It is 2024, and we are still having conversations about workforce. The issues that we blamed on this ease of unemployment benefits in 2020, we still have workforce issues. It never was the fact that the federal government was throwing a few bones at people. It is because we have a fundamental underlying workforce issue in this state. It's what it always was. This language here is complicated. It unnecessarily expands the coding requirements. Again, it's going to, I think, take more time away from the modernization effort. And frankly, I think it's unenforceable. So I would appreciate your support on this effort as well.
Charles, you have anything to add to that? Nope. Okay. Representative Shu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know. Charles might be the right person to answer this question. Maybe even the department. Is there an implicit severability if in case this is ruled unenforceable by the DOL?
The first line in the green box is to the extent authorized under federal law. Any other questions? Representative Osmond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the maker of the amendment. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So it's subsection G, but there's two different parts. One is in red, that is stricken by text added by the committee. The other part is in green, that's also stricken. Are both of those combined as part of the amendment? So striking the entirety of subsection G.
Okay, so Charles mentioned earlier that they had trouble getting the green and the red to jive, and so the green part was already stricken going into today, I believe. No, the red part was already stricken. Go ahead, Charles. I'm an idiot. I'll stop talking now.
So what is, so first of all, let's look at the text of the bill, and you'll see there in lines 7 through 14. So some of it is strikeout in red, and that is what this proposed amendment does. It strikes what is in red. The green was stricken by the amendment that the committee passed. And in replace of that, you'll see that green box, and there was language to the extent authorized under federal law and et cetera. So that was language that the committee added in the amendment that it passed. And this amendment strikes that language, so you can see the green strikeout, because I couldn't use red for some. And so this amendment strikes that entire box, and it strikes what is stricken in green in the text of the bill, lines 10 to 14.
Okay, so this is from the original bill as well as the amendment from last Thursday. Thank you, that helped clarify.
Right. So by the time this thing hits the floor, we will do a substitute bill, and it'll all be right, and much less confusing. Any further questions or statements? I would just point out that you still will qualify for state unemployments. They will just be suspended if the amount is greater than what you would get under state unemployment. So the trigger is still there, in my opinion. And as far as conformity goes, we do have that first line in there that as long as it's allowed by federal law. And there are several other states that also do this. It does add some complexity to it. So the bringer of the amendment is correct there, but we do have a new system being built, and the system should be a lot more agile than the system we have. If not, we chose the wrong vendor, but I believe that we did choose the right vendor, and that they'll do diligent work and get this done. And if you recall back during the COVID issues where we were stacking unemployment, and we had several employees that made more money than they did at work on unemployment, and that's what this is trying to address. The whole goal of the unemployment system is to help people get back to work, and if you're paying them more money than they would be making if they did go back to work, it's a heck of a lot harder to get that person to go back to work, and that's what this is trying to address. And with that, I'll turn it over to the ranking member to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the acknowledgement that I'm right, at least on one part. I think that it's another example of things we don't need to do. I think that we're doing a lot of looking backwards. And I know there was a lot of angst in 2020 about what was happening. It was a very chaotic time in life. I don't know that we need to enshrine in policy kind of something that holds us back to that time. So I think this is another complication. I would ask for your support as I move my amendment.
Okay, committee, you heard the amendment, second by Representative Hsu. All in favor say aye. All against say no. No. Motion does not pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the last of my amendments. You'll be glad to know. This is I'm hopeful this amendment will be more palatable to the committee. This one basically, if you look, there's a section on page 81 that requires report being produced that would include the employer account identification number. There is some real concern from the Department of Labor that this information could become and would become public, and that would open those employers up to fraudulent claims, again, using their employer ID number. My proposal, there's two parts to this. One part would eliminate that requirement so that we're at least just striking the employer identification number. And then the second part of this amendment, and Charles, correct me if I'm misunderstanding this, but initially the report that was produced would only be distributed to the chairs of the Senate and House Commerce Committees. And I think that we should expand that a little bit. And I think as being a minority member, I feel it's important that somebody in the minority party have access to that information as well. And so I would propose expanding that to the chair, vice chair, and minority leader of the minority member of each committee. And I think if we strike the employer ID number, we could do that. We could get the report in more hands, and we could protect employers from potential of fraudulent claims. I also might point out in the discussion of this that I think once we produce a report like that, we have to also do a specific exception to the Open Records Act to protect that and ensure that's not an open record. It's by default an open record unless we include it in a list of exceptions to the open records. So my belief is that this would in fact be an open record. And I think if we do that, we can preserve the transparency part of having an open record on this while protecting employers by eliminating their individually identifying numbers.
Can I get a second on the amendment? Seconded by Representative Penn. All right, committee, is there any discussion on this amendment? So I think it's important to receive the information, but the bringer of the amendment has a point on the transparency side. We do want to be able to be transparent, but we certainly don't want to get employer ID numbers out into the public and have that information out there. And so I'm hoping that there would be a way to have the Department of Labor assign alternate identification numbers when they send the report. And if that could be done, I would support the amendment because we still want to try to get the information, but everything else in the amendment is right. Still want to try to get the information. Is that something, is there anyone on the Department of Labor that can speak to whether or not it would be a huge issue to assign an alternative ID to the company? Standby committee. Thank you. If you could just introduce yourself.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Amy Salm. I'm the Deputy Secretary of External Services, which includes unemployment insurance. We understand that your question relates to whether or not we could create a individual or unique identifier for each employer that would not be their account number. Yes, we think we could do that. It would probably be manual, take a little bit of creativity, but it would not be prohibitive.
Representative Probst.
Thank you. Then I would be willing then in that case to substitute a simple striking of the employer ID number and replace that, and giving Charles some flexibility to craft this in a way that would work. But a identifier that, like an employer identifier other than the employer identification number that the Department of Labor would craft.
So,
Charles.
Would replacing that with an employer identification number assigned by the Department of Labor, would that work?
I think yes, and giving you flexibility to address the technical needs of that amendment, I think that would work.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Representative Dodson.
Yet I'm trying to kind of track the numbering system. This is probably pretty benign, but if you go back to page 80 and line 12 there, this is the beginning of section 11. And it's got a couple of different paragraphs in there where it says the secretary shall, and then you get down to the bottom here of page 80. And it doesn't, when we insert this as a C, it doesn't appear to fit. In other words, we've got all these requirements, and then you say the secretary shall. So I'm not objecting to what you say. It's just the placement of it doesn't seem to fit very well with paragraph or section 11.
Charles, what do you think of what Representative Dodson?
Just one moment, if I could take a look at that.
Representative Blue has a question for the bringer of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Protes, I'm looking at line 42 where the and is stricken. And if you already stated this, I apologize for not paying attention, or I was reading. Could you tell me your reasoning for striking that and?
I didn't ask specifically for that to be stricken. I just conceptually told the reviser what I was trying to do. So that might be better directed at Charles.
Thank you.
I think I'm being told that was part of the original amendment that we made last week.
And also, I would just add that it needs to be stricken because it's part of, if you look at the numbering, it's part of 2. It's at the end of I'm sorry, it's at the end of B1. And then there's a 2, and then I think there's a 3. So that's why it's stricken. So I guess in response to the question, I can take a look at this. If the committee gives me some discretion, we'll make sure the numbering is right.
Okay, thank you. That'll be part of the final motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, representation, is that okay with the second, the change that he made? Yes. Okay. You can close.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move my amendment.
Okay, committee, you've heard the amendment seconded by Representative Probst. All in favor say aye. Representative Penn, sorry. All against say no. Motion passes. So Congratulations, you improved your batting average today. Okay, so any other, Representative Blue, do you have an amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to offer my amendment. I just wanted to talk about it real quick. If you guys remember that I brought up just tightening the loophole to make sure that no employers starting maybe possibly now are going to stop paying their unemployment benefits and so forth. Spoke with a lot of the parties about it and so forth. And there was just still a little bit left that I feel like I don't feel comfortable presenting the language that isn't comfortable with all parties. And so I just wanted to be in full transparency, note that they're still going to be working on it, and maybe it's something that could be fixed in conference or when we're on the floor, so forth. But I just didn't feel comfortable putting in language that it might have to be tweaked again later. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, committee, any further discussion? All right. Seeing none. Substitute bill. Representative Bourgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we would create a substitute bill and pass that out favorably for passage.
For the bill number?
House Bill 2570. With the amendments that were talked about, and also giving the revisor some discretion in the areas that we spoke about.
Seconded by Representative Penn. Oh, any discussion? Seeing none. Committee, you've heard the amendment. All in favor, or the motion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All against say no. Motion passes. Motion passes. Committee, I failed to mention that Representative Abercamp is here with us today. So welcome to committee. I'm sorry you had to sit through that, but that's how a bill is actually passed out of committee, sir. All right, go ahead, sir. I deserve it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'm sorry for the time delay. We'll move on to the other part of our discussion today. If I can find it. An update on the apprenticeships from Shonda Anderson, Director of Apprenticeships and Internships, Kansas Office of Apprenticeship. Welcome to committee, and I'm sorry it took a lot longer than I thought on that, but we got it done right, and that's kind of how we do things here. We will go a little bit over for you because the next committee doesn't meet until 3:30. So. I'm sorry, is your microphone on?
Is that better?
Yeah, oh, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Chairman Terrawater and honorable committee members. As I was mentioning, I'm going to defer a good bulk of my testimony because we've had some apprentices, some union leaders, and some businesses from across the state of Kansas come, and I want you to hear from them on how important registered apprenticeship is to them. I will say that Kansas is all in on registered apprenticeship. Our data is showing significant growth, and we're excited for you to hear from many of these business and union leaders. The Office of Apprenticeship is now experiencing much needed modernization and growth, and with these lasting impacts, we'll have generational workforce proficiency for many, many years to come, especially for our most in-demand industries. I'm going to jump to the last slide. And you do have a copy of this. There we go. Oh, sorry. Okay. So based on data reported by the United States Department of Labor, Kansas has clear areas of growth opportunity. To meet these significant needs in high demand and high wage occupations and continue down the path of modernization and growth, the Kansas Office of Apprenticeship must continue to support our growing programs. The Kansas Apprenticeship Tax and Grant Act is a great start. It was passed last year, and to date, we have promised nearly $1 million. With nearly a 55% increase in new apprenticeships year over year, continued strategy is important to continue to grow and to encourage all employers to implement apprenticeship programs as a strategy to develop a qualified workforce, thereby increasing registered apprenticeship across the state. I'll turn you all to a copy of the 2023 Kansas Office of Apprenticeship Annual Report. And then on this last slide, if you'll take a picture of the QR code, you'll have a chance to join one of our monthly dinner bell calls. We call them the dinner bell calls because it's bringing everyone together to learn more about registered apprenticeship. Today, we actually had our dinner bell call on the Kansas Tax and Apprenticeship Act. And next month, we'll actually be hearing from registered apprenticeship programs in Germany out of Porsche, which is kind of exciting. Very cool. With me today, I have several folks. I've got two of our Kansas Apprenticeship Council members, Chairman John Clark. He's with United Plumbers and Pipefitters 441, as well as Dr. Seymour. She's Vice President with WSU Tech. With Plumbers and Pipefitters, we also have apprentice Stephanie, I'm going to say it wrong, a fifth-year registered apprentice, as well as Skylar Suter, also a fifth-year registered apprentice. We also have Crossland Construction here. We've got Chuck Hakey. He is a mentor in running their apprenticeship program, as well as a one-year carpenter registered apprentice, Ethan Davidson, and Grant Fagg, a ironworker first-year registered apprentice. We also have with us Interhab, Matt Fletcher, running their registered apprenticeship specifically for disability service professionals, and their first-year registered apprentice, Jennifer Riddens, and her mentor, Sharita Davis. We also have Bombardier. We just launched their registered apprentice yesterday down in Wichita. And then we also have Carpenters Union with Damian Levings here as well. So as I mentioned, I'm going to defer most of my time because I really want you to hear from them.
Thank you, Shonda, and congratulations on all the work you've done in such a short time. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us, sir. If you could just state your name and who you're with.
Certainly. My name is John Clark, and I'm the training director for Local 441 Plumbers and Pipefitters, and I'm also the president of the Kansas Apprenticeship Council. And, well, Shonda promised me 2 hours, but I'm going to cut it really, really short. So.
Feel free.
Like I said, I'm the president of the Kansas Apprenticeship Council, and I'm honored to be with you here today to shed some light on a pivotal aspect of our economy, which is apprenticeships. As you hear from our apprentices, I urge you to consider the profound impact that apprenticeships have not only on our workforce, but to our communities and the overall economic landscape of our state. Apprenticeships serve as the bedrock of skilled labor development, providing individuals with invaluable hands-on experience, mentorship, technical expertise in various trades such as plumbing, carpentry, electrical work, and welding, among others. These programs offer a pathway to success for countless individuals who may not pursue traditional four-year college degrees, but possess a strong desire to learn and work hard and contribute to our society. In our rapidly evolving economy, the demand for skilled workers in the trades continues to grow. However, we are faced with a significant shortage of skilled laborers, a gap that apprenticeships are uniquely positioned to bridge. By investing in apprenticeship programs, we are not only address the shortage, but also bolster our workforce and enhance productivity and drive our economic growth. Furthermore, trade apprenticeships embody the spirit of opportunity and inclusivity They offer viable career path for individuals from diverse backgrounds, including minorities, women, veterans, and individuals with disabilities. By fostering diversity and inclusion within the trades, we're not only enrich our workforce, but also promote social equity and economic empowerment. As members of the Commerce Committee, you hold the power to enact policies that will shape the future of our state's workforce. I urge you to consider the invaluable role that apprenticeships play in fostering economic prosperity, promoting workforce development, and building stronger communities. Let us work together to champion these programs and invest in the future workforce and ensure that every individual has the opportunity to thrive and success in the trades. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, it is my pleasure to introduce you to two apprentices from the Plumbers and Pipefitters Apprenticeship Training, Local 441 of Kansas, Stephanie Timmel and Skylar Suter. Thank you.
Okay, come forward if you guys like to say some things. And so typically we require a PDF to be sent in for testimony. We understand that you're not prepared for that, and that's perfectly fine. So we're just gonna put in the minutes that you mentioned. You talked about your apprenticeship program for now. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Hello, my name is Stephanie Timmel. I'm 25 years old and I was born and raised in this state. For me, this apprenticeship has provided opportunities that I didn't know existed. I came from a poor family with parents that did not graduate high school and struggled with addiction. Throughout my childhood, they would tell me to be better than they were. When I was 20 years old, I found out about the Plumbers and Pipefitters Apprenticeship Program. It came at a time when I realized that the current shop I was at had no room for growth. I needed something different. I needed a place where I could learn new things and have the potential to climb the ladder to success. Being an apprentice with PPA TKS has been the best decision I've ever made. This 5-year program has changed my life. The knowledge is never ending and the opportunities are always knocking at my door. I've been able to get proper training on the legality of plumbing and pipe fitting. That's what's right per the code. And I've learned a skill that I can take home with me every day. PPA TKS has also gone above and beyond in providing classes for apprentices such as personal financial strategies, starting your own business, and more. Without this program, I wouldn't have gained skills, knowledge, or financial stability. If I could speak to every single person out there that was wanting more out of a career, out of life, I would tell them to join the Plumbers and Pipefitters Apprenticeship Training Program of Kansas. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Skylar Suter. I'm an apprentice with PPA TKS. I found the apprenticeship through pure circumstance. I found it through my girlfriend, now wife's father, John. I think that the apprenticeship and the education that it gives is the best kept secret in Kansas. I was a young man who attended a semester of college pursuing my mechanical engineering degree when I realized that I'm not built to sit in a classroom and acquire thousands upon thousands of dollars of debt for the same general education I'd already received. My wife's father introduced me to the concept of earning while I learn, otherwise known as an apprenticeship. Through the apprenticeship I gained countless skills, multiple certifications, such as my master plumbing and mechanical licenses. I will be finishing my 5th year in the apprenticeship this September. To put into perspective how beneficial the program has been to me and my family, I'll share a little of my backstory. I'm a country boy from a small town. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life, and I had been jumping from job to job, chasing jobs that had higher pay, while doing While doing so, the only thing I learned is that I knew nothing. Fast forward to meeting my wife and joining the trades as a helper. I spent an entire year as a helper before applying and being accepted into the apprenticeship program. During this time as a helper, I got a taste of what an apprenticeship is all about. After being accepted into the program, I soon realized that this wasn't like my other jobs. This was a career. Sorry. After this career has taken me so much further than I could have ever anticipated. The apprenticeship not only gave me those skills, but bettered my financial position overall because I was able to earn a livable wage while learning. In these 5 short years, I've gone from knowing nothing to being able to use my skills to create my own plumbing and mechanical construction company. The skills and life experience acquired throughout an apprenticeship help to form lifelong bonds and, in my opinion, create some of the best people you will ever know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both for sharing.
Good afternoon. My name is Chuck Hakey. I'm the Education Director at Crossland Construction Company. With me today, I have Ethan Davidson.
Hello, I'm Ethan Davidson. I was hired on last summer through their apprenticeship program. I'm currently level 1 in carpentry. Thank you.
I'm Grant Fagg, and I am an iron worker, first year.
At Crossland Construction, do we have a, there we go. Yep. A little bit about us. We are an all-inclusive education and training program. We have internship programs. You can't see the bottom line there for some reason, but we do we do 1.5 million annually in payroll to internships, interns and apprentices through our training programs. We also do 300,000 annually in scholarships. Our Red Iron Ready program is fueled by these guys. Our Red Iron Ready program is designed to find qualified leadership individual or leaders through our apprenticeship program, and we have an emerging leader program that is also fueled by our apprenticeship program. So, last but not least, our apprenticeship program. Well, those slides, there we go. Are we right now? No. Okay. Our apprenticeship program provides in-class academic training, shop time, performance training, specific Crossland self-performance items that are achieved and coach and coached with our mentorship program. We are a self-perform company. We self-perform carpentry, concrete, specifically form carpentry mostly, finished carpentry, hardware, things like that. We are a 100% commercial company. We self-perform structural steel, red iron, and pre-engineered metal building. We also do civil, dirt work, earthwork. So we have all of the carpenter, ironworker, and operator programs in our company. We self-perform mostly in southeast Kansas, west Missouri, Rogers, Arkansas, Bentonville area, Tulsa, and we are pushing to self-perform in Wichita and Kansas City. And so we're trying to grow our program. And we grow our program through the registered apprenticeship program, the Kansas Registered Apprenticeship. That's very important to our apprentices for their growth. And we promote from within our program to our to our Red Iron Ready programs. Our apprentices maintain 150 hours of in-class shop time. We are fueled by the NCCR curriculum. Our apprentices go through 150 hours of academic training, academic in-class and shop training, and they will achieve 6,000 to 8,000 hours on the job training through our mentorship program before they'll be certified. They certify both through the NCCR, credential through the NCCR, and the Department of Labor, Department of Commerce. We had a testimony from a graduated apprentice who's in Oklahoma City. He couldn't make it with us today. We were hoping that he'd get to speak to you. We did a video, but I don't think you can see it, and so we should have tried something different there, but I'll just tell you a little bit about him. He went from an apprentice, a level 1 apprentice, a pre-apprentice, to to a journeyman carpenter to a carpenter foreman mentor, and now he's an assistant superintendent. He's on a South Canadian project in Oklahoma City, wastewater treatment plant for our heavy side, our industrial side. And he will tell you that his career at Crossland has been fueled by this program, this department, the desire to be credentialed. And we appreciate the program. We intend to do better as a company and become better as a company with the guys that we have in the program. Our Kickstart program is a program that we recruit from all over Kansas to refuel our apprenticeship programs. We graduate these guys academically between 2 and 3 years and get them out in the workforce as journey level or lead level workers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think you did you should be commended on the job you did with the technical difficulties that we had with the slides. If you would, the copy I have is also kind of messed up. So if you could, when you get back, if you could reformulate the slides and put a link into the video, we'd like to watch that video individually, at least, because it's the personal stories that matter the most. And we'll give you an opportunity to get that to us. Yeah, thank you.
Chairman Tarwater and members of the committee, my name is Matt Fletcher. I'm the Executive Director of InterHab. We're a trade association that represents 48 service providers across the state of Kansas who provide supports to children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And as you might imagine and have probably heard from IDD service providers in your districts, recruitment and retention of direct care workers is one of the most critical challenges facing our industry today. And I can tell you that for over 20 years, which is the amount of time I've been associated with InterHab, we have consistently talked about the need to create a career lattice and develop professionalism for our direct care workforce. I'm happy to report today that we have made our first step forward in that regard, thanks to registered apprenticeship. InterHab was the recipient of a 2022 grant award from the Kansas Department of Commerce with funds made available originally from the United States Department of Labor. Those funds enabled us to create a new registered apprenticeship program for direct care workers. We call them direct support professionals in our field, but they're the individuals who provide the day-to-day direct care support to persons with IDD. They're who help these individuals be successful in the community, live in the community, and be a part of our communities. Our registered apprenticeship program combines two critical components: a formal curriculum component, which we developed in partnership and collaboration with Wichita State University, and a robust on-the-job training and mentoring component, which currently in our program is over 2,000 hours of required on-the-job training and mentoring that these direct support professionals must complete. When they complete those two components, they then receive a credential from the United States Department of Labor. And it is a truly distinguishing accomplishment for these professionals. They carry something with them that they can then utilize in their career moving forward. And I think, as you will hear from one of our participating apprentice candidates, it is already something that is paying off for them within their workplace. I will tell you that we're currently at 11 apprenticeship sites across the state of Kansas that are participating in InterHab's registered apprenticeship program. Those are developmental disability service providers across our state. Our eventual goal is to have 20 of those apprenticeship sites. We're a little over halfway to our stated goal for this program. We currently have 65 apprentice candidates who are enrolled and are participating in the program. And someday soon, that number will be 120. What will happen to this program after the end of the grant through the Kansas Department of Commerce? I can say with certainty that InterHab will continue to develop this registered apprenticeship effort. We see this as a critical beachhead for us in professionalization of our workforce. So in the future, we intend to grow this program. We intend to ingrain it into our field, our industry, and we really hope that we can work collaboratively with each and all of you to ensure that apprenticeship has a bright future here in our state for individuals who support persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And as I mentioned earlier, we have one of our apprentice candidates with us this afternoon. She took time out of her busy schedule supporting folks at the agency she works for to be here with us. And I'd like to introduce her to you now. Please welcome Jennifer Rydens.
Welcome to committee, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you why I've chosen to further my education in the DSP Plus apprenticeship program. I've been in this field for 2.5 years with no prior experience. I have found that this is the most rewarding position that I've ever been in, and any opportunity to gain more knowledge to the field, I'd like to do. I chose to participate in this apprenticeship because I believe it gives me more insight into how to grow in my position, and I want to do everything I can to provide the best support possible so the people that I support have the quality of life that they want. This apprenticeship has already opened my eyes to what, in ways, I will continue to build on, practice, and implement. A few weeks ago, my supervisor complimented me on my documentation by saying how it was impressive. I don't always believe that I'm so great with words, so today I'm going to share with you a little about my days and how they apply to the DSP Plus focus areas. Every day is different. However, every day we start off with a team meeting where we discuss any changes needed for the people that we support. These conversations help me grow in areas of ethical and professional practices. After our meetings, we greet and support people with their personal needs. These activities help me grow in the wellness area. In all honesty, it's not easy to put into words as everything I do as a DSP, but the DSP Plus apprenticeship program enhances everything that we do and challenges us to learn and implement new ways to assist those that we support, like using communication assistive devices. I would like to mention a situation or two. I know I would have done things differently without being in this program. When I started in the field, I was lost. I didn't know how to handle any kind of situation or what to say or how to say it. For example, when individuals arrive at our building in the mornings, they have routine personal responsibilities, and some people will just need a simple reminder, and those reminders to those people supported would be very loud and across the room sometimes. I'm embarrassed to say that this was not a way to treat people with dignity and respect. I am proud to say speaking at that volume no longer happens. Others and I will quietly approach a person to ask them to take care of their personal needs. One of my last lessons was on communication, which is huge in our field. We need to communicate as coworkers and feel comfortable providing feedback when it comes to supporting people. A while ago, I had witnessed an individual we support looking on our whiteboard for community outings, and I overheard another staff member say, "Your name's not on the list. Let's move on." It was rude. They aren't currently participating in this amazing program, so they may be unaware. That individual didn't know how to respond to that staff member. So I approached them and talked to that person and empowered that individual to let that staff member know that how they were feeling. And that person went up to that staff and said, "That was rude and I don't like it." That staff member then apologized. This situation would be communication and advocacy. I have learned to be more open to different ways to communicate with individuals. I observed an individual who was using a communication board. Well, when he first started, it was just verbal reminders, and any question we would ask him, he would just say yes. It didn't matter what it was. That was just always his response. His guardian suggested using a communication board and pointing to what he would like to do. Through the program, I was learning more different ways to communicate so they have more of a voice. And I suggested we use his board where ask him what he wanted to do and have them point. And that was successful, and we saw less behaviors. Another participant in the DSP Plus program had they had tried writing. They had asked, what's your favorite color? And that person wrote blue. So it was two different DSPs in the same program came up with a successful way to support the same person in different ways. I am embarrassed to say, before this program, I may not have noticed or commented on any interactions. I am learning that with this apprenticeship program, there are more efficient and respectful ways to work through situations. This program challenges you to think of new ways to be more beneficial to those that we support. It has opened my eyes. It's helping me to be more efficient while helping others succeed. I would love it if every DSP took this program because I believe it would open their eyes as well. The people we support would have their staff all helping them have the quality of life that they want. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a great story. Success.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. Thank you very much for taking the time. My name is Tanya Suddeth. I'm the head of U.S. strategies for Bombardier. I'm proudly based in Wichita, Kansas, Bombardier Group's U.S. headquarters. And I've had the great privilege to lead the site for many years. So I'd like to chat with you a little bit about our most recently approved A&P apprenticeship program. So maybe to start, just kind of a brief overview of Bombardier. There we go. Bombardier is a global leader in aviation focused on designing, manufacturing, and servicing the world's most exceptional business jets. Our aircraft are trusted around the world in government and military special missions roles, protecting the North American continent as well as our troops overseas. And we are a key supplier to the U.S. military. Today, Bombardier counts over 18,000 employees worldwide, with 3,000 in the U.S. Our U.S. footprint includes 9 locations across 8 different states, with around 3,000 employees in the U.S. In 2022, sorry, I'm having problems with the clicker. In 2022, we proudly announced our Wichita site, the historic home of the Learjet facility, as our U.S. headquarters. The site is a key pillar in Bombardier's long-term growth strategy, given the expansion of our aftermarket business, as well as solid growth perspectives in the defense business. We have over 1,200 employees in Kansas. Our service business has expanded substantially from just 3 hangars over 5 years ago to 7 hangars today. And I'll tell you, the competition for A&P technicians is fierce. The aviation industry as a whole, we've seen this coming for a while. We, like many other industries, are faced with the great retirement. We've got a lot of expertise that is retiring at this point, and we're all competing for the same resources. At this point, the availability of workforce is limiting our ability to grow. So, for context, the U.S. aviation maintenance industry employed approximately 280,000 workers and generated $47.7 billion in economic activity in 2022. More than half of those workers, in fact 66%, are employed by the general aviation industry. Simultaneously, the demand for aviation maintenance has grown year over year. More aircraft are being purchased, more aircraft are flying, and the flight missions are further. The result is a very heavy demand on the workforce that maintains and services aircraft. We are working diligently to expand our education and training activities to be able to better serve the next generation of workers. We are very proud to have just launched our first in the nation A&P apprenticeship program in collaboration with WSU Tech to ensure our workforce is ready for the market demand. The program will allow students to learn from experienced instructors and gain valuable knowledge on how to repair and service Bombardier's world-class portfolio of business jets. Over the course of the 2-year program, our apprentices will complete hands-on training at our Wichita Service Center, as well as in-class training at WSU Tech. Our first cohort of students started just last month on January 15th. Our apprentices are fully paid employees of Bombardier from day one, and will continue to work with us after they have completed their program. On average, each student's curriculum cost, including the certification test, is $35,000, a savings that we are very excited to offer to them. Upon completion of the state-registered A&P apprenticeship program, the first of the kind in the state of Kansas, the students will have obtained their Federal Aviation Administration A&P certification. Being able to offer these students full-time positions at our facility is a source of pride, and we look forward to sharing our passion, knowledge, and expertise with our new employees. Furthermore, this new workforce model in Wichita will pave the way for the rest of our U.S. sites as we look to establish more registered apprenticeship programs. And it's important to acknowledge that the framework here in Kansas, the support from the Commerce Department, the ease of navigation from the Office of Apprenticeships, and the team at WSU Tech makes it possible to jumpstart on such an important program. This is critically important as we are currently in an active recruitment phase across the U.S. to hire more than 200 experienced technicians at our service centers throughout the United States. That concludes my presentation. Thank you again for the time. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so I think you're the last presenter, and there might be a couple of quick questions. I've got one. How many students are going to WSU this in your first draft?
So our first cohort is 8 students, and we have an actual learning instructor on site there at our campus. Right now, currently, they're spending 4 days a week on site and 1 day a week in training at WSU. And we intend to launch our second cohort in June. What we've established as part of this program is one-to-one mentorship with the employees. So currently, with the help of WSU Tech, we're trying to find that right balance of in-class versus work on the shop floor on a day-to-day basis.
So I've been aware that A&Ps have been an issue for you for quite some time, and we did pass, this committee passed that aviation tax credit bill. Did that help at all? Are you using that?
Absolutely. So what I would say is the aloft funding that just recently was passed has been incredibly helpful. The aviation tax credit has been incredibly helpful. These are important tools for us to have to train this next generation of mechanics. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you asked one of the questions that I wanted to concerning the aviation tax credit. Thank you for your testimony here today, and thank you to the rest of the staff and team that's out there. You guys are doing phenomenal work. I see you, WSU. There you go. Quick question concerning your program, the apprenticeship program. Is it maybe I'm misunderstanding, the feeder for it is coming from the college? Is that correct, or are you reaching out? Is it immaterial for college credits? Are you going to high schools? Are you in the minority communities out there? How does that work exactly?
So the fee is basically the curriculum that WSU Tech is applying.
Tracking.
And we're covering that cost as well as the cost to employ the apprentices.
Okay, I would love to talk with you offline about some other constituencies that may want to get involved in it.
That's great. We are super excited about this program. We see it as
yes, ma'am,
a huge tool for us going forward. So again, thank you all for your support.
Love
Greatly appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mr.
All right, in the interest of time, we'll have to move on. Sean, do you have any closing remarks or? Nope.
Yep. I just thank you very much for having us come up here and give a little bit of a platform to all of the wonderful work that's going on with registered apprenticeship and the diversity and breadth of work that's happening in this space. So thank you very much.
So I was looking at your numbers, and we are 38th in the country based on number of apprenticeships.
Yes.
And I think that's about where we are in population as well. And you did that within 1 year. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. I can't wait to see more further progression. So
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee, we'll meet tomorrow. Just kidding. We're not. We're adjourned. I'll see you guys Monday.